Welcome to the regular Tuesday night open meeting of the Tucket Speakers Group of Alcoholics Anonymous. My name is Ron, by the way. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Ron.
Hey, guys. Good to be here. In spirit with the fifth tradition of Alcoholics Anonymous, which states each group has but one primary purpose: to carry its message to alcoholics who still suffer. Our group's message is hope and the promise of freedom from alcoholism, found through trusting God, cleaning house, and helping others. Let us open the meeting with the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Thank you. The Alcoholics Anonymous Preamble. The preamble of Alcoholics Anonymous states, Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics achieve sobriety. At this time, I would like to ask Danny, please come up and please read the 12 steps of recovery.
Excuse me, Danny, alcoholic.
Hey, Danny.
The 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, to another human being, the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people whenever possible, except when to do so would it injure them or others. 10, continued to take personal inventory, and we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for the knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs.
Thank you, Danny. And I've asked Billy to please come up and read the 12 traditions for us.
Please say clap for me. Hi, I'm Billy. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Billy.
12 traditions of Alcoholics Anonymous, short form. Our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends upon AA unity. 2, for our group purpose, there is but one ultimate authority: a loving God as He may express Himself in our group conscience. Our leaders are but trusted servants. They do not govern. 3, the only requirement for AA membership is a desire to stop drinking. 4, each group should be autonomous except in matters affecting other groups or AA as a whole. 5, each group has but one primary purpose: to carry its message to the alcoholic who still suffers. 6, an AA group ought never endorse, finance, or lend the AA name to any related facility or outside enterprises, lest problems of money, property, and prestige divert us from our primary purpose. 7, every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. 8, Alcoholics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional, but our service centers may employ special workers. 9, AA as such ought never be organized, but we may create service boards or committees directly responsible to those they serve. 10, Alcoholics Anonymous has no opinion on outside issues, hence the AA name ought never be drawn into public controversy. 11, Our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need to always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, and films. 12. Anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities.
I'd like to thank the readers. Very good job. Okay. Our format tonight is one speaker will come up and share their personal experience with the step or steps that has been selected as it's laid out in our book, Alcoholics Anonymous, otherwise known as the Big Book. Out of respect for our speaker, please limit your movement and silent your cell phones now, please. It distracts the meeting and it distracts the speaker. The steps tonight that have been selected are 10, 11, and 12. And this brings us to our speaker. It's my birthday today, and I'd like to believe that Paulie flew Pete up for my birthday to speak for me. But that's just my ego. But the truth is, he flew Pete up here to join us for every single one of you here tonight. So please give a warm welcome to Pete, and enjoy.
Okay. My name is Peter. I'm a recovered alcoholic. I'm grateful to be alive and sober, part of a sacred place called Alcoholics Anonymous. And has anyone seen the heat guy in this church? I left Florida, it was 84, and the sun was out, and I got to the frozen tundra a few hours ago. And I walked in my room, I put the heat on 100. I mean, it's been cold since. So, Paul, thanks for having me out here. I appreciate it. Glad to be here and get to share with you, see Paulie and Joe and a few other guys, Ron that I know, and Mark and Bill, who's been MIA for about 20 years. Good to see you. And it's good to be here to share with you my experience, strength, and hope on steps 10 and 11, what got me there and what I'm currently doing now. Loving God separated me from alcohol June 23rd, 1988. And as I'm here tonight, I claim and hopefully bear witness to the fact of being a recovered alcoholic. And I say recovered because I am. And anything less than that great fact would be falsely humble. But on June 23rd, 1988, a loving God saw fit to save another one, a wretched soul like me, and bring him back to life like he's done with every one of us. And on that particular day, I wasn't looking to quit drinking, which I tried many times, stop drinking, which I tried many times, get to AA, get to treatment. That was not the plan on the morning of June 23rd, 1988. The plan was when I came to, sunken in this bitter morass of self-pity with tons of hate and contempt, and the hope light was off, that I had to hustle up money, get up out of this filthy hallway I was living in an abandoned building, and somehow hustle up money to get to the liquor store, to get a pint of Mr. Boston Blackberry brandy. And if I had the strength to hustle up more money, I can get some Valium, and I can wash another day away. And I remember trying to get up off the floor, and Bill says in the story, the courage to do battle wasn't there, and that's what met me. And when that happens to us, it doesn't feel good. When we're met with despair, drunk or sober. Big Book says, I'm alcoholic and cannot manage my own life. That's drunk or sober. That no human power can relieve me of my alcoholism. That's drunk or sober. And I was experiencing it drunk, and I've experienced that sober. In that place that I got to, that I have found we all must get to, drunk or sober, is when the hope light seems to go off or hasn't been turned on yet, and we're met with a huge amount of despair. And on June 23rd, 1988, I was greeted with an unbelievable amount of despair, desperation, the gift of desperation, the G-O-D. And in that place, it does not feel good. But as one of my teachers always told me, if it feels good doesn't mean it's good. If it feels bad doesn't mean it's bad. This did not feel good. And in that opening up of me, and I was really, the jaws of life, God got and split me wide open. I really felt like at that moment I was at death's door. And that is what got me here to you tonight. And I get to talk to you tonight about what it's like being in the light. What it's like practicing fidelity to God and not infidelity to God. Putting no gods before my God. What it's like being able to, with a clear conscience and not worried about consequences or any kind of pushback or brushback about shouting God from the rooftops. That everything goes through this power and nothing short of that, in order to get recovered and stay recovered and grow in understanding and effectiveness. When I say recovered, I'm not trying to separate myself from anyone in Alcoholics Anonymous. And trust me, I've been thrown under a bus a whole bunch of times about a sundry of things. But it's just the truth. And I don't want to be a recovering anything anymore, because I've been a recovering alcoholic, and that is not pretty. I'm worse sober than drunk sometimes. I don't react well to just being abstinent. I've been abstinent. I don't do well just being abstinent, because that means I'm left up to me and my mind, and my sense of self is now coming from mind and thought rather than spirit. And what happens is I start to feed the ego, which is never satisfied, and starve the spirit, rather than feeding the spirit and starving the ego. But through a gift of desperation, and as I said, I experienced that drunk and sober, I get to talk to you tonight about being in the light. And that's not to say I'm a better AA than anyone because I claim to be in the light. Trust me, I have cracks in the armor, there's lots of warts, there's lots of mistakes, but I have found, my experience has shown me and countless others, if I claim to you that I'm a spiritual person, I am probably not. It's like me telling you I'm a really humble guy, I'm probably not. But I have found for folks like us, and even outside of AA, it's the scratching and the clawing, the chopping wood and carrying water, and striving for spiritual perfection, striving to know the God, and striving to help others, realizing our defects of character, coming to those realizations that we are flawed, and we're only a small spoke in a very big wheel, coming to the realization that of myself I am nothing, the Father does the works. That kind of aha moment of my brokenness and trying to get well, that's spirituality. As best as I can answer it. There's a book out there, Spirituality of Imperfection, that says something like, if you ask someone the question, what is spirituality, and they answer it, they probably misunderstood the question. It's like me telling you, tell me what God is. No matter what you come up with is not the answer. We can just try to share our stories or our experiences, which I hope God gives me tonight to share with you. But I can tell you I have had experiences about what it's like walking in the sunlight of the Spirit from a place of wreckage and experiencing that despair, that desperation, that gift of desperation. And I wondered why AAs, the old-timers, would call it a gift of desperation. A lunacy commission should be appointed for them. This place is nuts. Everything's upside down. Desperation, you never own desperation, no matter what's going on. I'm good. Everything's good. Even when we're sober and walking into AA and our butt's falling off, the newcomer asks the old timer, how you doing? The old timer says, I'm Moses. Everything's good. I'm beautiful. I have all the answers. If we took a look at them on the way here, they look like a guy just going into detox. Right? So I have found that spirituality, that way of living, is sometimes we don't even know that we're walking a spiritual path. I mean, we've got an idea, we're doing all the things we have to, and sometimes we say, I'm not really feeling God, but the person next to you is going, oh my God, that guy's lit up, that woman's lit up with God. So when I say recovered, I'm not trying to separate myself from anyone or be unique or special. It's just the first promise in the book. Getting recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. And further, beyond that, is getting recovered from the isms that accompany alcoholism. Because just being separated from this thing called alcohol, or whatever substance we're into, is just the beginning. It's a tip of the iceberg. We need to go in or under, uncover, discover, and discard the things that make me tick. Take a look at my resentments, my fears, my contempt, my remorse, my regrets, My perceptions and conceptions about life in general, about God, about AA. Where am I going? Why am I even here? Page 27 says ideas, attitudes, and emotions, which once the guiding force of the lives of these men are cast aside. I came in here with a truckload of ideas, attitudes, and emotions about what I'm supposed to be like as a man. I can't even tie my own shoelace without a committee meeting. The type of woman I'm supposed to be with, how much money I'm entitled to, and defend that to the end. And AA says, you got it all wrong. Anything you come up with, Pete, is wrong. That's a great way to stop crushing the ego, and the first thing we do is push back, but it's necessary. And only through that place of having no reservations or a lurking notion, that place of despair, that complete brokenness where we're split open, will we be willing to say, okay, I'll follow you. When we completely run out of road, drunk or sober. And I keep referring to being sober and running out of road because I know there's a bunch of us in here, around here a while. And if anything like me in my first few years, I figured all that stuff I was immune to now. The disease and discomfort and fears I'm immune to now because maybe I'm sober 5 or 10 years. But the illness is cunning, baffling, and powerful and very patient. It doesn't care. It'll get us where we think we're doing good too. And where I am right now, tonight with you, 27-something plus years sober, and where God wants me is a long way to go. Even with my little bit of awakenings, it's such a long way from where God has plans for me to go. Almost as if you will, the heavens are above the earth. The work in progress is who I am. And I don't claim to be anything else than that. I don't claim to be any kind of special AA because I get to do this. Through my brokenness, I've been able to experience, hey, I'm outspoken in a very large wheel, and I kind of like it that way. I've run into too many folks who really believe that are guardians of Alcoholics Anonymous. That's a scary place to be because I can never go to you and say, you know, I'm not doing good today. I got some resentment. I got hooked on a resentment. I got some fears cooking. I can't tell you now because I'm Moses. I'm the director of AA. Everyone thinks I'm perfect. Really, I think I'm perfect. You know I'm screwed up. June 23rd, 1988. That morning, afternoon, I had gone through 6 treatment centers. And I grew up, I would say, upper middle class family. My mom and dad always gave us new clothes and the Christmas toys and all the things you would want as a kid growing up from the outside. I was a gifted little athlete, a very gifted musician, did well in school, presented really well. Mom and dad made sure I presented well, never let them know what you're thinking or what's going on behind closed doors. So we presented as a family well until you walked in. There weren't hops playing in the background and dubs flying around the living room. It was messy. My dad, I grew up with a dad who's a street guy, what we call back in Brooklyn the knock-around guy, the street guy. I joke around, my dad made Tony Soprano look like Tinkerbell growing up. He was a tough man. And he never wavered, his way or no way. And a man's got to do what a man's got to do. And Mom was just like us. My mom was alcoholic, full-blown alcoholic. With what I know now being in the business I'm in and all the studying I've done, Mom was extreme bipolar, maybe even a borderline personality, and addicted to Valium and booze, and tried suicide probably 6 times. And January 1974, she finally succeeded in taking her life. So there was a lot of stuff going on, a lot of infighting in the house, a lot of mixed messages. Ages 8 to 10, I was sexually abused by this person who was kind of a distant relative. So I had all the stuff that a lot of us walk around with, but won't let see the light of day. Nowadays, it's a little different. You know, with AA and recovery kind of being out there, very matter of fact to the world at large, and trauma being discussed in therapists, you can just go to Google and find 100 therapists. Back then, you told no one. You don't discuss this. And you don't know how to process it or what to deal with it, or how to deal with it. So when I picked up a drink, I found quickly that all of that was just put over there. And that's why I returned to alcohol, because it works. Besides getting drunk and nice and everything's pretty and looking at life through rose-colored glasses, this was a wonderful thing. The poison that was in me was set aside for a little while. And I love the effect produced by alcohol. And it brought me up to June 23rd, 1988, where I have 6 treatment centers behind me. I haven't seen my family in God knows how long. I'm a bum, literally a bum in the street, wearing the same clothes for I don't know how long, months, and bathing underneath the fire hydrant and panhandling by the Manhattan Bridge and Little Italy, Chinatown, all those places. Doing whatever I had to do, a lot of illegal things, a lot of ugly things, just to get money because I needed to drink. It wasn't like I want to drink. I'm blown away by some folks who say, I remember partying back in the day. I didn't have a party when I drank. I don't know, I can't identify what A says. When I used to party, if it was a party, what are you doing here? Go party. This was work. This was where I turned into an animal. And morals and integrity were long gone. It was about doing whatever I had to do because I needed to drink, and if I didn't drink, I was going to get sick. And coming detoxing off of pills is a deadly game, and I can feel all of that. But something happened. The light in me, if you will, got turned on, and I had nothing to do with it. I grew up with a belief system. As a man, you depend on no one, ever. And you don't trust anyone, ever. The only thing I was told to trust is the money in your pocket. That is it. And I come into Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'm told, you need us. I need to depend on AAs. And that flew right in the face of everything I was brought up with. But through desperation, I said, okay, I'll do it. I almost welcomed the idea of having some sort of camaraderie around me. There were a lot of guys, when I was in a halfway house, who were complaining, living with 40, 50, 60 other guys, and I loved it because I was not alone. I wasn't boosting a pack of Twinkies and eating them in a dirty hallway for dinner. I was sitting down with a bunch of guys, and we were, shooting the breeze together, talking and sports and this, that, and the other thing, and I was okay. That day, the pilot light, as a friend of mine says, got turned on. And that was given to me by God, not by me. And it came through desperation. Here's what goes on. And it's happened to me drunk and sober. When we run out of road, as I did on that day, and I got up off the floor, and I didn't have it in me to go out and hustle money, I was met with some clarity. We get struck sober, if you will. And I knew if I get another drink in me, I'm going to die this time. And if I don't get a drink in me, I'm going to die. That kind of clarity came from him, not from me. In fact, the clarity, just to put thoughts together, came from God, not from me. The other thing I was met with, I don't want to die. And for so long, because I tried taking my own life, just like my mom was trying, it went out, that I didn't want to die in this little brief moment. And suddenly things got clear. Truth showed up. Know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Well, what is the truth? We say that a lot sometimes to people in AA. The truth will set you free, the truth will set... What is the truth? Well, your truth is different from mine once we get past that. We're both alcoholics. The truth is one thing. The truth will set you free. The truth is God. And that truth, that God set me free. The spiritual transformation that we talk about, the awakening, the experience, the revolution, the transformation, whatever word works for you, that is a direct result of going through the 12 steps. It's a guarantee. It's a contract. You do this, you get that. And we still don't buy into it, but that's the guarantee in our big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. That if you do certain steps, you will get the spiritual transformation. We will be made new from the inside out. So I sit down with the sponsor and I begin going through this work, and somewhere, definitely in 4 through 9, bang, things change. Perceptions and conceptions change. A relationship with God is formed. We become, instead of self-centered, God-centered. Instead of taking, we're giving. It's happened. And we have to enhance and grow with that. But for many of us, and I'm one of them, that revolution actually begins in the worst moment when we feel like we're about to die. When we're completely out of road, when we bottom out. My spiritual revolution, my spiritual awakening began June 23rd, 1988. I knew nothing about the big book. A little bit about AA, I hated. 6 treatment centers, they don't work. I'm a Catholic, my religious community is a joke. That's what my belief systems were back then. Today I'm a member of good standing in my church. But that's what it took to get me to that place. And I was split open. And only in the breaking open, drunk or sober, as I was June 23rd, 1988, can the light shine in. I wear eyeglasses, and they get dirty. You know how I know how they're dirty, where the spots are? I hold them up to the light. You ever do that? You look up to the light to see all the blemishes. I need to stand in the light to see my truth. I can't do it hiding out. And standing in the light is sitting with another drunk, reading inventory to a sponsor, to a group of drunks, and sharing as we usually do in AA from here and not from here. It's standing in the light, and we get to see the blemishes, the cracks in the armor, the defects that we're unaware of that are working. That's the sacredness of Alcoholics Anonymous. So this spiritual transformation began for me in the worst moment of my life up until that point, even beyond my mom taking her life, which is a whole nother sort of trauma. But here is a self-imposed crisis. Here it is, I'm bleeding out. We will die not from one mortal wound. We will die from 1,000 cuts and bleed out while we're sober, because we can't tell anyone what's going on. And although I'm claiming to have a relationship with God, I don't. Although I'm claiming God with my lips, my actions look completely the opposite, because the ego is running the show. The self-centered, self-seeking, self-absorbed drunk is sitting in the room giving a talk. And little by little, I start to unravel, start to go backwards through the steps, and I find myself in the corner sucking on a pint of Mr. Boston Blackberry brandy or whatever we're into. And we wonder, how did this happen? It's what the illness wants. So in the breaking open, drunk or sober, is where the light can shine in and things begin to change. And that place of despair didn't feel good. I was desperate. I was afraid. I had no idea what to do. But God will load up the tool belt when the intent to know Him is pure. There's something in another book, the big book. And the carpenter walks into town, and as soon as they see him, they start, praying and bowing and kneeling and all this other jazz. Prior to that, it looked like a brothel. And they start to follow him out. He says, "Don't follow me. You're hypocrites." Am I a hypocrite in Alcoholics Anonymous, that when I'm in an AA meeting, I'm Moses, and then catch me in a parking lot, I'm trying to sponsor the girl with 30 days? I'm lying, cheating, and stealing until I walk into AA, and then I want everyone to bow down because I'm in the room. Can I practice principles in all my affairs when those around me are not? And again, do I have fidelity to this God? So this breaking open is where the light shines in, and it didn't feel good, but it was necessary. And in that moment, in this moment of clarity, what I did was call my dad, and I hang up the phone. Try to call him again, hang up the phone, and I kept walking. But God connected the dots and sent my dad to come get me. I collapsed in his arms when he found me, and I went to my 7th treatment center. Not even believing treatment would work. It was just a relief from the streets. I had to get off the streets. I couldn't take it. It was killing me. I wanted to take a hot shower. I can't recall last time I stood under a hot shower and used soap to wash myself. I can remember the last time I had a toothbrush in my mouth. And I can't remember the last time I didn't drink either or eat pills. I was tired of being afraid. I was afraid all the time, not only for my life, I was just afraid. But God knew that. And on June 23rd, 1980, he says, if you're out there, please take me from this. I don't want to die. It wasn't get me to treatment, make me a speaker, get me a sponsor. I don't want to die. And that's as honest as I could be. I stood before, if you will, my Creator in the raw. There were no bargaining chips, nothing I could hook into saying, well, get me sober as to get her back. Get me sober, get my kids back, get my job back. And if that's what motivated you, great. That's not my story. There was nothing. No family, no nothing. They all locked doors on me. I just didn't want to die for the first time. And then God loaded up my tool belt, and I got into treatment number 7. And I would love to tell you I was a star pupil in treatment, but I wasn't, because after 10 days, the illness was not done. I'm sober 27 years in a few months. You think my illness is, okay, we can't touch him anymore, let's go somewhere else. It didn't make a dent. It's not impressed. And it wasn't with me with 10 days. And it started to come back and say, how about another drink? A little Jack Daniels, a little drinky poo, and you'll be okay, Pete. You can go to group. You can do all your little assignments. You can do your art therapy and your dance therapy, which is a disaster, by the way. And you'll be okay. And they shipped me off to Minnesota. And I always like to talk about Minnesota for a second because I owe them my life. God's angels showed up out there. They took me to a meeting called the Three Legacies meeting. 300-400 people on a Friday night. Speakers were dressed with ties, women in suits. They had a big book, and they talked about living in the sunlight of the Spirit, what it was like, what happened, what it's like now. The room was dressed. The room was soaked in recovery, and you could feel it. And although I was so afraid and intimidated by all of them, the Spirit in me kept me going every Friday night. And I'll tell you how I got there. I was living in a town called Hastings, Minnesota. One-horse town. This meeting, the Three Legacies meeting, I'm going to guesstimate and say is an hour and change drive. About the same drive Paulie and I did tonight. It was a long way. These folks came to Hastings, picked me up, took me to the meeting, took me to the diner, fed me because they knew I had nothing, then took me back, dropped me off, and then went back home on Friday night to go get me. I would see that, and a little bit of clarity said, these guys are really going out of their way, so you don't have to come get me next week, don't worry. I knew I was an inconvenience. I said, no, don't deny us a chance to stay sober. And that's what they did. On Friday night, they came and get me. And I'd sit in the back of the room because I didn't feel worthy about sitting up front, pinned against the wall. And I watched these folks operate sober. And they talked about God. They talked about prayer. They talked about meditation. They talked about service to others, sponsorship, primary purpose, on and on and on. One night, I'm in the back of the room, and a gentleman gets up to speak, and he looked like Sigmund Freud. Bow tie, balding, glasses, kind of stout, 60s. And my first thing, my mind tells me is, oh no. How am I going to identify with this guy? But God knows how to speak to every one of us. He knows the heart, knows the soul. So I can't judge a book by its cover. This man got up there, and I'm weeping in the back of the room because he told, as we always hear, my story. I said, this is impossible. The dots can't connect on this one. And that was the first time I started to get a glimpse of that the spiritual life, especially when we get into 10 and 11, and the work we do in 12, the work we get to do, that God allows us to do in 12, does not make sense. If we try to figure out the spiritual path with a thinking mind, it's impossible. Nothing makes sense on the spiritual path. To the mind, in the realm of the spirit, it makes perfect sense. There's a point we get to. There's a woman I study, and she always talks about this. There's a point we get to prior to getting there. We're like, wow, what a miracle. Oh my God, what a miracle. When we're truly in the world of the Spirit, we don't go, wow, what a miracle. We're just like, what did you expect? This is how God operates. There's not even an aha moment. It's like, yeah, that's what God does. He provides what we need if we kept close to perform His work well. Next. In fact, the price to grow in understanding and effectiveness, the price to stay sober is really a small price. It's like kissing a newborn baby on the cheek compared to the work to keep the drunk going. They're asking me to pray twice a day, as my book says, in the morning and evening. Ask me to meditate the morning and the evening. They ask me to be accountable to someone and do a written inventory. Be quick to see where religious people are right, make use of what they offer. As I go through the day, continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear, the gut check. And at night they ask me to put that on paper and share it with someone. Look at what my corrective measures are. This is not a lot of work. I do this religiously, every day. It takes me a few minutes, sometimes longer than others. And then I get to call my sponsor, Mickey, on a Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. I take no commitments unless he gives me permission to do so. At 7 o'clock to whenever he's done with me, I read these inventories. We talk about scripture. We talk about AA. We talk about life. We talk. He does most of the talking. I do most of the listening. And I have a notepad, scripture, big book, and a pen. And I start to take notes. And I don't say, yeah, but. I listen. God has given me that. That is not a big deal compared to being homeless in Alphabet City. Chasing another drink and losing integrity. I'm bleeding out of integrity. And then get to a meeting and talk about it? Are you kidding me? Because God's always giving. All the time. And my 10 and 11 has always shown me that. As I experienced more of this God, and as our book says, that we drew near to me, disclosed himself to us. When they talk about that, they're not really talking about proximity here. You can't be separate from that which we already are. But there's this feeling, there's a spiritual connection where we feel closer to our God. As a result of that, how I live my life changes. As a result of going into sacred silence, I seem to hear better. As I go into the darkness to meditate, I seem to see better. And I notice most of the time when I'm talking to folks, it's usually because my mind is disturbed. When it's not, I'm usually silent. And we get to experience stillness. Finally, the noise has finally stopped. It'll start again. But I'm not ricocheting all over the place like a ball on a pinball machine. There's some stillness about us. And the eyes will always give that away. I remember when I was growing up, my mom would sit with me and my younger brothers and tell us wonderful things about this power called God. And taught us how to pray, and we did all the things that Catholics do, and you go to communion and confirmation, all these nice little things. And, by the time you're 14, and you're kind of playing ball, and, oh, you have to go to church. It wasn't really a connection. When I was about 10, 11, 12, with all the stuff going on, I remember sitting with my mom, and I was enamored with the priest. I wanted to be a priest, and that got shut down by my dad. And by the time I'm 14, right before mom died, I'm really not interested in God. But my mom told me how wonderful God is, that he'll give us everything. He'll take care of us and love us. And I watch her get sick and die, and I say, you know what? This God is not really a nice guy. Because if he was really a nice guy, my life would look a lot different. I'm 14 thinking this way. It makes no sense that I had so much hate and contempt, not only for my God, but for my own religion and people who worship the God I thought were weak and cowardly, that on June 23rd, 1988, the very power that I despised, loathed, and spat at, I turned right back to and begged for help. This is how it looks. And we can do this sober. Every morning, Mark comes to my house, puts money in my pocket, puts clothes on my back, gives me food for my belly, gives me the gift of sobriety, gives me a little relationship, gives me a place to live that's clean, gives me some integrity, gives me some dignity, gives me some hope, ad infinitum, every single day. And watches me while I sleep at night to make sure no harm comes to me. Every single day. And after about a year or two, Mark says to me, can you come to my house? I'm having a little get-together. I would love for you to be there. And I say, who's coming? And he tells me, Paulie DeLuca and Paulie DeLeo. I said, I'm not going. He says, these guys, I said, I don't like them. I'm not going. He said, it's okay. Next day, he comes and gives me the same stuff all over again. over and over. 6 months goes by, he says, can you come to my house again? It's my birthday, it's December, it's my birthday. Can you come to my house again? Having a little get-together. I would be honored, Peter, if you can come. And I refuse him again. But every morning I expect him to show up and take care of me. And now I got to a point where I tell him, by the way, I need this and I need that on top of what you've given me. Right? You see where I'm going with this? We go to God and petition. We go to God and expecting, and he keeps delivering. But as soon as it gets a little bumpy, I blame him. And how many of us, whatever religious leaning we belong to, because our book says be quick to see where religious people are right, how many of us really are quick to see where religious people are right? Or do we go at those religious people with still contempt? How many of us, because I was one of them, whatever our religious leaning is, go to that house for 1 hour a week. 1 hour. Sit in the back row and just say, hey, thanks for everything. I'm going to spend time in your house. Because you come to mind. It's called AA, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, 24/7. You're there. So today, I'm going to come to your house and hang out with you. How many of us really do that? Or we get too busy for that? And yet, we expect him, whatever he, she, or it is to you, to deliver as soon as we ask. But because we don't like to wait, right? God, I asked you to hit Powerball for me. I'm waiting. So something changed for me in Alcoholics Anonymous through desperation. And the desperation came for me in a hallway, and the desperation came for me in Alcoholics Anonymous. I was sober about maybe a dozen years, 11 years. And I go through a divorce. I get married in AA to a civilian. And I came with the belief system, you get married once for all, that's it. And I tried to be his best husband as I could. I didn't run around. I was home all the time. She knew where I was, except I married an alcoholic. And my eyes were blind to what I was seeing leading up to the marriage. And once we got married, the whole thing blew up, and so did the marriage. And when I came out of the marriage, flat broke, I lost everything in that relationship, in that divorce. I'm going through the separation anxiety. I'm going through a whole world, a gamut of emotions. And I'm feeling abandoned and lost. And I also felt, as a man, I failed. I couldn't keep a woman. You failed. Mr. AA, you blew it. That's what my mind was telling me. And I wept many times, all alone, because I couldn't let anyone see I was weeping, because real men don't cry over this. And I remember being at my altar in my house on my knees, and I'm praying, and I remember crying, why are you doing this to me? What did I do wrong? And someone showed me the book of Job one day. But there I was. And I remember a friend of mine took me for dinner. We were out in Jersey. And we sat down to eat. And you know when you're so depressed and so banged up, you can't even eat. You just can't, you're just there. There's a body there. That's about it. And your head wants to be somewhere else. And I excused myself from the table. I went out into the parking lot. And the whole thing broke apart. The gift of desperation met me one more time. And in the parking lot, it was evening. And I remember looking up at the heavens and again telling my God, as I did on June 23rd, 1988, when I sat in my first third step, and I did many times afterwards. But this was coming from a very deep place once again, a gift of desperation. I remember telling this God, I'm done. I am not running my life. I never want to run my life. Please, whatever you got for me, it's got to be better than what I'm trying to put together here. I'm done. I have found out as soon as I try to figure stuff out and I get into self-reliance, I'm in the self-managing department, and my book warned me in how it works that I cannot manage my own life. And I took my hands off the wheel. Wherever you want, I'll pick up my cross. I'm going. You fix this. I quit. My sobriety is none of my business. My God allows me to participate in it as if it was. My life is none of my business. That's been made very clear to me in sobriety, but my God allows me to participate in it as if it was. And that's usually when I'm going okay. As soon as I start to manage, you lose self-reliance, figure stuff out, manipulate a little bit, self-seeking when I'm trying to be kind, all of this stuff, I'm usually about to harm someone, including me. Because I'm no longer authentic. I'm walking around with a false self. That's the ego. I expect a certain response from you. I want you to treat me the way I think I'm supposed to be treated, and I'm so far away from His will. When I was growing up, there was a term they used to tell us, the older guys would always tell us, hey, you're out of line. Hey, you're out of line. When they told you that, that means you're about to get in trouble if you didn't straighten out. You're out of line, kid. It's the same thing on the spiritual path. I need to be in line with God, not out of line with His will, because when I'm out of line with His will, I'm going to get in trouble. And it may not be a drink or a drug on the front end, but there's one waiting for me in some bar and a pint in some liquor store. And Flacco still got drugs. He didn't run out yet. This road that they talk about in 10 and 11 about growing and understanding effectiveness, I thought was this wide road. Our book says all-inclusive, never exclusive. Absolutely. God says, come to me. But how far we want to grow, what new level of consciousness, where I want to walk, how deep are my roots, now the road gets narrow. And the gate is really small to which I'm going to pass through. Because in 10 words we work with, well, turn, watch, aware, and observe. Turn, watch, aware, and observe. Turn in order to go out. Turn into this power in order to go out to you. Watch, aware, and observe. How am I doing? How's my speech? It's not what goes in the mouth that defiles a man. It's what comes out. The road got real narrow. And it requires me to be in discipline to the spiritual life. But in that discipline is a tremendous amount of freedom. Am I willing to take the walk? Back to desperation, drunk or sober. And then we get to a place where, for me, I love the effect produced by God. I love the effect produced by booze. I love the effect produced by God. I feel right, I feel whole, I don't feel dirty, I don't feel incomplete. I feel a part of. How do I get to do this? Me? No. I pray I never show up for these talks. I mean, my body gets here, but Pete Marinelli doesn't give you a talk. That guy needs things that's not AA. That guy needs applause, approval, all sorts of stuff. I just want to be an instrument, an effective agent. So I need to walk, and I get to walk, because I love the effect produced by God, a narrow road. It looks like this, guys. For me, I come to Alcoholics Anonymous, and they're talking about 10 and 11 stuff. All my teachers, my first sponsor, Tony, my second sponsor, Mark H., Gary, Don, all of them, Mickey, all talk about walking a narrow road and getting right with God. The whole thing's about driving us to God and growing in understanding and effectiveness. Well, what an order. I can't go through with it. Because you, as a fellowship, my teacher specifically, asked me to walk this very narrow road and worship this God that I don't know. This narrow road, the 12 steps that I never did before, that's going to take me to a place I've never experienced before. And the only thing that allows me to put one foot in front of the other or chop wood and carry water, quite frankly, is the fire every one of us have deep down in here to know our Creator. Because that's what we're looking for in the bottom of a whiskey bottle. That electric. I'm okay now. I'm good. Something's going to take me there. And it did for a while, only to cut us to ribbons. I come into AA, I'm raw. I got nothing. I don't know how to operate in this with earthlings. I don't know how to do this. And then I catch fire with God. We hook into this relationship with God, and suddenly we're chopping wood and carrying water, and it seems to be, okay, a little bumpy, but I'm doing it. You know, look at me, I'm walking. I mean, you know. I remember the first time I was living in Minnesota, I bought myself a winter jacket. So I walk into a men's department store alone. I ran out. I couldn't do it. I was overwhelmed. They're all going, that's the junkie right there, that's him. Look, honey, that's what junkies look like. I couldn't do it. So I took half the sober house with me. 45 guys walked into with me. And this guy, Eddie T, said, this one fits good on you, looks good on you, it fits good. Why don't you buy this one? I said, okay. Gave him the money. I walked out all on my own. I bought this, right? That's where I was at. Currently, we'll do some mechanics here, but currently, my prayer meditation has been one of 3 times a day. The soul or the spirit knows how to take care of itself. And we got to get to a place where we seek that's what the soul loves. My spirit, your spirit, our spirit knows what it needs to do. The trick is to silence the mind. Do you ever do this? You're meditating or you're praying or you're just doing house chores and Joe comes into your head, Mary comes into your head, out of nowhere. And you call them. And they say, I can't believe you just called me, I'm having a really bad day. This is a God thing. Yeah, it is. The mind shut down from it. The soul knows what it needs to do. Do you ever not going to go to a meeting, same old meeting, and something takes you to a meeting you've never been before, out of your town, and you walk in and the speaker lights you up and you find a group that you're kind of like-minded folks? How did that happen? Because the soul knows what to do to take care of itself, which is taking care of us. The idea is to silence the mind. And 10, 11, and 12, we cannot do with cognitive thinking. I can't do 10 and 11 with the mind, if you will. The book is not aimed at the mind. The entire book, the first portion of a book is not aimed at the mind. That's self-help. That's therapy. That's treatment. That's a lot of other avenues. The big book of Alcoholics Anonymous is not aimed at the mind, it's aimed right at the spirit, the heart, the soul. And I need to get my soul food or I will starve to death spiritually. And when we look at 10 and 11, it's just about we turn this pilot light on, the flame is burning and we need to make it bigger, not maintain. Because it'll go out eventually. We need to put more wood in there and keep it burning. And that's what 10 and 11 allows me to do, because it gives me the ability to go down different avenues, work with spiritual books, which I have, being quick to see where religious people write, which I do, counsel with other folks. Right? And if I need a doctor for whether it's psych issues or physical issues, I go. And I give the entire thing away in 12. And so God has brought me to a place, I really wish you wouldn't text back there while I'm doing this talk. Okay, that's really rude. That's not cool. This is AA. You can text out there. What God has allowed me to do is work with 10, 11, and 12 and prayer meditation 3 times a day. I didn't plan on that. It's just where I was brought to. I did the morning and the evening, and it came to me through religious practice with these beads that I work with, and my sponsor encouraged me and gave me more information. And somewhere in the middle of my day, and I work in a treatment center business, which is completely disorganized organization, I will pick a spot, usually on my lunch hour lately. I don't need to have a whole hour for lunch. I can eat in 15 minutes, and I will give that time to this practice. Right? But I start my day on awakening, literally on awakening. I'm 56, so Mother Nature, I have to take care of some business before I do anything. Right? And then I go to the mat. And what I've done, and I encourage this, create a space in your home. I made this little altar. a meditation mat, a cushion, an altar, what represents my higher power, all the little trinkets people in AA have given me. I have my sage and my candles and all that stuff. On the other side, I have some Eastern influence stuff. I have some other trinkets and pictures and so on and so forth. And sometimes I burn sage, and sometimes I light candles, and I have the gongs and all the bells and whistles. But here's the deal, and I have all the little books. But here's the deal. At some point, I can't take that with me when I go to God, whether it's in prayer or when He calls me home. At some point, I need to cross the threshold, leave all the little bells and whistles and the books and the sage and everything behind, and meet God again in the raw. And that's called prayer. And then I wait like the humble servant that we are in silence. I don't talk now. And sometimes I walk away with just 10, 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, depending on how long He needs me in there, not how long I'm in there, or insist on staying in there, so I can tell you, I meditate 30 minutes a day, and you think I'm Moses again. That's none of my business. My recovery is none of my business. I chop wood and carry the water. Sometimes it's just silence, and then sometimes other things happen. But I don't know until I'm in. Step tells me a couple of things here. Our book uses words like vigorously, commenced, at once, next, now, grow. These are all words that mean action. If I go to the gym to get in shape, and we have the AA spiritual gym here, we need to work out. If I go to the gym, I join a gym to get in shape, and I go in there and hang around and text or do Facebook or smoke a cigar, I'm going to go out the same way I walked in, out of shape. So I get to work out in a spiritual gym, and our book uses a lot of words to say, let's get to work. You ever see a duck on a pond? They're just kind of gliding along. You peek underneath, they're working. They're moving. That's us. The great thing about us, when we get a little humility, I don't have to tell you, this is all the work I do. Aren't you proud of me? We just do it for fun and for free because that's who we now be. Our beingness has been changed. The process of recovery is a forward journey backwards. Numerically, we go through the steps, 1, 2, 3, all the way through 12. It looks like we're going forward. What we're doing spiritually is going backwards. And when I say backwards, I mean returning home to purity, honesty, unselfishness, and love, what the Oxfords talked about. It's a forward journey backward home. We need to go out there in order to come here. And as we're moving out through the steps, we're removing the self. We're getting the ego shut down as much as God allows. Self and self-reliance has been put aside. The illness goes dormant. And once it goes dormant, we can stand in the light. And only in the light will we know God. Only in the light will we know that truth. And only in the light can I be of maximum service to you. Our book says you can't transmit something you haven't got. That's a warning. What am I passing on to a drunk? My illness? Or am I passing on light? Step 10 tells me, we vigorously commence this way of living as I clean up the past. That's a condition here. I can't move forward until I clean up the past. I can't be present until I clean up the past. How can I be present if I'm still driven by voices of the past? Right? You know that voice that tells you, you're not good, you'll never do it, who are you kidding, they're not going to like you. Who's talking to us? 80 million people from yesterday all the way back to the day we were born, and we still listen to them. Hey, how many folks came to this meeting alone in your car? Anybody drive here alone in your car? Okay. I want your consideration. Were you really alone in your car? How many people were talking to you up in here and you were talking to them all the way over here? You had about 45 guys in the back seat you were entertaining. Right? The great thing about living a spiritual life, when we're in the car alone, we're kind of just, it's me and God just going to a meeting. And when those voices start, you say, thanks for sharing, have a nice day, get out. But most of us have about 45 people in the back seat just chirping at us. In fact, someone's saying, how come Paul didn't ask me to speak? I'm spiritual too. We got all this stuff going on. And as soon as you leave the meeting and get in your car, guess who's in the back seat? 45 other people waiting for you. This is how we operate. And our moments are based on what those voices are telling us and what people are telling us to do. We react to everyone's emotions. She says, I love you, I'm in a good mood. She says, I met somebody else, I'm looking to commit homicide. My boss says, way to go, here's a raise, I'm very spiritual. I got a big fat check in my hand, my boss thinks I'm great. When he says we're making cutbacks, I want to kill him and shoot the company. So this is what we do. Or do we just move? There's light, there's light, there's light. I've experienced some of those things, getting laid off thinking it was the end of the world, finding out God had something greater for me. I need you in Florida to work for a great place. You don't need to be in Texas anymore. At that moment, I couldn't see that. I've learned. It says, I've entered the world of the Spirit. My next function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness. What am I currently doing to grow in understanding and effectiveness? What's that look like? Now, if we're not doing anything, guys, okay. Awareness is the greatest agent for change. Okay, I'm not doing much. I don't have much of a prayer life. I'm not really reading anybody. I'm not doing much other than going to meetings. Okay, no right, no wrong, no up, no down, no left, no right. It just is. But we have an opportunity now to get into a different lane. This is not an overnight matter. It should continue for my lifetime. I continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. When these crop up, meaning they are, because I'm broken. I'm weak flesh sold unto the slavery of sin, Scripture tells me. I'm broken. I'm going to make mistakes. Even when I don't want to do the wrong thing, sometimes I do. Even when I don't want to say what I just said, I wish I can take that back. That's our brokenness. But what do? We turn to God and make amends quickly. I just screwed up. God says, you're forgiven. Go help another drunk. I continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. When they crop up, we ask God at once to remove them. I discuss them with someone immediately. I have immediately, folks, a sponsor and a couple other guys. I had two. Let me bring this up to date. I have a sponsor and I always work with two other guys. I currently have a sponsor and one other guy right now because the other guy is not so reliable anymore. So I've always worked with an immediately person. If I can't get the sponsor and something hooks you, one of those things that hook you at 8 a.m., I'm not going to wait till 11 tonight or Wednesday when I speak to Mick. I will call my sponsor immediately. If I can't get him, I will call Joe and say, hey, Joe, I got something. I give them spiritual consent. It tells me we cease fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol. So the question is, who am I fighting in my head? Am I having trouble in personal relationships? Even though these people aren't even around or even alive, but I'm fighting with people. Or if I cease fighting anything or anyone, am I wrestling with the idea of drinking again? Am I getting drink signals, drug signals? Or I've been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected, is what my book tells me, the 10-step promises. It tells me I'm not fighting it. I'm not avoiding temptation. I've been put in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. I haven't sworn the stuff off. Instead, here it is. The problem has been removed. I'm in a place called recovered as a result of a relationship with God, which I got through the 12 steps, which I found in the big book, which a sponsor gave me to, which I'm now passing on to a new guy. So the same guy, me, who came in here in a state of obsession, that stuff's been removed. Over the years, you had the fleeting thought only to be met with sanity and truth. I don't get that. If I grow in understanding and effectiveness, we walk with the armor of God. Safe and protected. God doesn't need me in a place of remorse, morbid reflection, more despair, more self-pity, basically full of me, romancing a drink or whatever I'm romancing again and again, because now I'm consumed with me, and God got me sober, got us sober for one reason, to go get his kids and bring them here and not shoot the wounded. Our primary purpose. God didn't get me sober to get me a nice job. He gave me a job. To get me the car, the relationship, he'll give me that if he sees fit in his time. Gets me sober for one reason. Now go get my kids. The ones who are dying out there, the ones who don't look good. and practice these principles in all my affairs, meaning when the homeless person's on the street, I don't just go, oh my God, and step over them. Well, I just spent $10 on a cigar. I give him $2, and here's what I do, guys. And this is not for me. I got this thing, it's a year now. I've always given money to homeless, but it's taken on another place. I don't want to go to the pearly gates one day, and God says, you did a good job. But remember that homeless guy on 1st Street and Main Street? I said, yeah. That the one you stepped around and didn't want to go near him because he smelled funny? Yeah, that was me. What I do to the least of them, I do for me. So there's a few of them in Deerfield Beach. One, I'll use a different name, we'll call him Joe. And I would give him money and buy him food. How do I have a relationship with God? I do all this work. I help another drunk, but what about God's kids? Enhance my relationship, grow in understanding and affection. I do it because it's right, then I do it because I get to do it. And so what I do is, I was doing this big book workshop. I go up 95 South, get off at exit 29, and there was this man and a woman every Thursday night. Roll down my window, a couple of bucks, and I do this for them. Hey, what's your name? My name. Joe and Mary. My name is Peter. This is my fiancée, Marion. She says, hi, how are you? They're looking at us like a deer in the headlights. Where are you from? What God has allowed me to do is give these less fortunate folks a little bit of dignity. They have a name. Yeah, they don't look good. Yeah, they reek. Yeah, they've lost their way. They're still His kids. And that, I'm a drink away from being that. And they might be sponsoring me in a couple of months. I walk into church Sunday, as we're walking out the procession, who's sitting in the back of the church? Joe. And he says, hey, Pete, he salutes me. And he puts out his hand, a clean hand, and he shakes my hand. He didn't ask me for money. Nice service, he said. Eric, I just gave his name away, has a friend. It's Peter Marinelli. I might be his only friend, I don't know. But I kind of bridge that gap. That's what we get to do in Alcoholics Anonymous. That's what we get to do. Because if one of us had a brother or a sister, God forbid, who was living like that, we would want someone to give them something. Well, we couldn't. Yes? It's easy to let up on a spiritual program of action and rest on our laurels, my accomplishments of yesterday. Warning, I'm headed for trouble if I do, because alcohol is a subtle foe. So I need to carry the vision of His will into all my activities. One of the prayers I work with is, Father, I surrender my will to you, I thank you for the power to carry it out. Show me what relationships to have and how to have them. And I ask Him to protect my soul from being poisoned. And I surrender my day to Him. My prayers are surrender, a daily surrender. My nightly review, I hit my mat. I've worked with lots of books. I'm currently working with a couple of books, and I don't read them, I work with them. And I try to take some of that information into my meditation at night. But I do a nightly review. I do 4-column inventory at night, and I share that with my sponsor on Wednesdays. And I go into prayer, and I work with a lot of prayers we learned here, some personal prayers, and I sit in sacred silence. I go into darkness to see and silence to hear. And if there's something that's hooked me, I will make that phone call. That hasn't happened to me in a while. And when my meditation is done, when I retire at night, whether it's 7 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night, or 1 o'clock in the morning, I'm done. And now I go about my business. Watch TV, spend time with Marion, go for a walk on the beach, whatever it is. Sometimes I just watch a little TV, watch a football game. But I'll close up my day with that. I'm done. If anything else goes on, fine. Why I say that is I used to wait till right before I went to bed to do prayer and meditation. Now I'm really tired. And then we fall asleep. Now I'm really tired. I don't feel like writing. So when I'm in, I do it. God doesn't wear a watch, and God doesn't have a calendar. On awakening, there was a gentleman, Vince D., one of my first mentors in AA. He asked me a question. I was newly sober, just back from Minnesota, and he said to me, so tell me what you do in the morning. You know how the old timers set you up? You know, I mean, I get up, I go to work every day. Well, what's your morning look like? I get up in the morning, make a pot of coffee, get my clothes out for work, take a shower, have a little something to eat if I'm hungry, do a little prayer meditation, tidy up a little and go to work. He says, stop. He says, let me get this straight. So you do about 10 things before you hit your knees and pray. I said, yeah. He says, tell me something. During that time, what guarantees you you're not going to get drunk before you get to prayer? I said, what do you mean? He says, you're in charge of your life after doing the first thing, the second thing, the third thing, the fourth thing, and then you decide to pray. Who's going to guarantee you, based on your will, that you're not going to get drunk there? Our book says, Peter, on awakening. So is my prayer one of the 10,000 things I have to do today, or the most important event? Am I waiting for inspiration to pray, for the right moment to pray, when the calendar is right to pray? Because I will never pray. Or do I do it because I get to do it and I like the effect produced by it? And the same with my meditation. And my book says, pass it all on in step 12, which is what I get to do. Guarantees me I've had this awakening as the result of these 12 steps. And I go work with drunks. The 12-step calls, I've made a bunch of them. Treatment centers have taken that out of our hands, sadly. But I remember the first 12-step call was petrified, and I've been able to have the privilege of literally cleaning up and washing down drunks and dope fiends and taking them to a detox. And as long as I stay sober, it was a successful one. Practicing these principles in all my affairs. If I have more affairs than principles, I need to take a look at that. But I try to chop wood and carry wood. I fall short, that's why I write inventory. And sometimes my actions don't show I'm falling short, but my mind is falling short. And so I write inventory and discuss and go back to God and ask Him for forgiveness. Not that God's forgiving me anyway while I'm doing it. But it's my way of surrendering to this power. Having had a spiritual awakening, practice these principles in all my affairs, and carry this message to another drunk, which is our primary purpose. And if we seek, we will find the drunk who's desperate enough to take what we got to offer. There's a lot of them. And he or she doesn't have to be just getting out of a detox or just out of treatment. We got them sitting in our meetings with 15, 20, and 30 years sober. We never have to worry for the words we speak because the Father will give us the words. And if I'm walking in the sunlight of the Spirit, God will give us the actions. We've been made new from the inside out. The less me, more God, less me. In discipline, there's freedom. And that's how I walk with all the mistakes I make and all the cracks in the armor. But it's the cracks in my armor that you identify with me. It's the cracks in your armor that I identify with you. It's the soul language. Bill talked about the language of the heart. It's the soul language. Our fears, our hurts, our remorses, our successes even, and the fear of getting there. That stuff is where we hook into each other. We're not going to hook into each other if we come in here pristine, with no story. But we share our divorces, we share our heartbreaks, we share all of it, man. This is the only place on the planet that I have found where I can tell you about the most god-awful, terrible, nasty things I've done, and you say, here's my number, give me a call. Only in AA. It's the sacred rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. And if you haven't found out the sacredness of these rooms, I pray you stick around long enough to experience the sacredness of Alcoholics Anonymous. The sacredness of Alcoholics Anonymous. And then once we get that, we want to give back and treat it as such. It's the last house on the block for me. It is my home. I don't have a life. It belongs to Him and it belongs to you. It's a life of invitation. And I get pointed in direction to go. I bleed willingly and joyfully for my God and for my AA. That's all I got. Peace.
Okay, Pete closed up the book, the script, okay. In the spirit of the seven tradition, we will now pass the basket. This group goes to great expense and a lot of work behind the scenes to make this happen for you guys. And we thank Pete again. It's customary to like form a line and thank the speaker. He's come a long way from Florida and well appreciated. I'd like to thank all who had helped in setting up this meeting, those who will help clean up, and all who participated in tonight's meeting, and our speaker again. Literature and CDs are available in the back of the room. Just see Paulie over there. He knows where that is. And let's close this meeting with the Lord's Prayer. Thanks.